The talk around the Premier League title race has been mostly around Liverpool and Manchester City, and there's a good reason for that. But Arsenal are a side that I feel have gone under the radar somewhat, until today. Today we're discussing why Arsenal are the best side in the Premier League this year. Arsenal, as it currently stands, are sitting top of the Premier League due to goal difference, but nearly every single metric that you use to measure Arsenal at the moment is better than their counterparts. When we take a look at wins, they have the most wins, they have the fewest draws out of the teams that they're going to be compared to, and that's obviously Liverpool and Manchester City, and then they also have a number of different factors. They've scored the most goals, they've conceded the fewest, and they have the highest goal difference. But when you take a look at some other things in terms of XG, they have the lowest XG against in 21, comparing that to the 24 goals that they've conceded. They're actually underperforming their expected goals against. They're conceding more than they're expected to, but at the same time, they've also scored a whole lot more than they're expected to. They're expected to score 61.3 goals this season out of their 31 games. Now that's really impressive, but it's even more impressive when you consider the fact that they've scored 75. Now that is a massive swing when you're comparing their XG to goals for. It means that they're actually converting the lower chances or the lower expected chances than they are given on a number of occasions. And this is down to individual brilliance, this is down to the opportunities they create for themselves and just being able to be clinical in front of goal, making sure that they're able to really convert those chances and get on the score sheet. This combines for a side that has an amazing defensive record, but at the same time being able to go forwards and make sure that they can make the difference in the offensive end of the pitch. And when Arsenal are going forwards, no one really encapsulates their attacking play more than Bukayo Saka, who currently sits at 22 goal involvements from 29 matches played, and considering the fact that he's 22 years old, that's extremely impressive. But then what's even more impressive are the underlying stats that follow up with him. He actually has the most progressive carries out of this entire Arsenal side with 129, and at the same time he also has the most progressive passes received, making sure that he's able to receive the pass in a good amount of space and then drive with the ball and carry it forwards. It's these kind of goal creating moments that allow Arsenal to progress the ball forwards, but also maintain their threat and ability in the transition, but also when they have a full amount of possession that makes them that little bit more dangerous, not only along the flanks but also through the middle of the pitch. It's this kind of danger that propels Arsenal into one of the top clubs in the Premier League this season, and really for Arsenal no one is doing better than Bukayo Saka from an offensive point of view. One other really interesting player that I think needs to have a mention, especially considering all of the stick that he got at the start of the season, is Kai Havertz, who actually sits below Bukayo Saka in his goal involvements. He has 14 goal involvements for Arsenal this season, which is the second highest in the entire team. He has a number of great traits. Yes, he doesn't have the flashy stats that Bukayo Saka does, but he's continuously contributing for Arsenal on a number of occasions, whether it be from that left 8 position, whether it be up front. And Mikel Arteta has also stated that he sees a vision for him out on one of the wide areas. Now, this versatility is something that has really become a benefit for Arsenal, but he's clearly putting up the numbers and making sure that he can contribute to a side that is looking to get their first Premier League title in a number of years. Arsenal's attacking play on the pitch is also consistent, free-flowing, and really dynamic to watch at times, but it's the versatility that I think needs to be given a little bit more of a highlight. This is the game that they most recently had against Brighton, and it's some of the stuff here that I think is really interesting to view when thinking about the way that Arsenal go forwards. So as you can see, Brighton are making sure that they're really nice and compact, really narrow in between the width of the penalty area, making sure that these Arsenal midfielders can't get on the ball. I'm looking towards the likes of Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, but when you see Arsenal set up, it's also really interesting. You've got Zinchenko, Gabriel, obviously William Saliba, and you've got Ben White. But it's the attacking forward positioning that I think that Arsenal have done so well with this season. Martin Odegaard and Declan Rice can't really get on the ball because of the narrowness of the Brighton defence, and Jorginho is currently being marked by 3 Brighton players. So what do? They actually play a ball long, and it's this versatility that I think is really good for Arsenal. They spread the play really wide. Gabriel Jesus is currently out of pitch, but we'll take a look at him in just a second. And then you've got Kai Havertz out on the right-hand side. Now, I mentioned Kai Havertz and his versatility, and he's actually swapped roles really quickly with Bukayo Saka, who is currently being marked by one of the Brighton defenders. But it's this ball over the top that I think is really, really interesting. The width of the play that Arsenal have just means that they have that little bit extra space, and it's utilising this space that Arsenal have done so well with this season. Now, we can see that Gabriel Jesus is out on this left-hand side. He's ready to receive the pass, and once again, when we talk about Jesus, it's the versatility to be able to go from striker to the left wing, and then you've got Kai Havertz being able to go over to that right-hand side, and it's just the versatility they have to be able to play that pass. Jesus is currently on his bike. He's running. He's going towards the penalty area once he picks up the ball. And it's from this moment that Arsenal win the penalty. Now, whether you think it's a penalty or not, that remains to be decided and debated. But it's through the attacking options that Arsenal have down both the channels and through the middle of the pitch that makes them that little bit more dangerous. And it's through this versatility and dynamic play that Arsenal have really started to benefit. And benefit they have. They actually have the most goal-creating actions out of any side in the Premier League, only joint with Manchester City on 124. That means 4 goal-creating actions per 90. But what's really interesting is the amount of goal-creating actions that they have through dead balls. And this is through the likes of a goal kick. It could be a corner, it could be a throw-in, when the ball is currently out of play and not in motion. And it's 15 goal-creating actions from these dead ball situations, more than any other side by quite a way. And again, we talk about versatility. Mikel Arteta has been able to get this versatile style of play into Arsenal through set pieces, through the ability to really change up their game. They're not one note anymore, and it's this versatility that has allowed them to become that little bit more dynamic, that little bit more cutthroat, and they're just giving them ability to be able to progress the ball forwards, but at the same time making sure that they're dangerous for more kind of situations. But to be the best in the Premier League, you also need to make sure that you have the best defence, and that's exactly what Arsenal and Mikel Arteta have managed to do this season. Arsenal have 14 clean sheets this season. That's the most out of any team in the league by a massive, massive distance. It's more than the likes of Liverpool, it's more than the likes of Manchester City, who do boast good defensive records themselves, but Arsenal have blown them out of the water. And it's when you look at the underlying numbers from this that you can find out why. It's not necessarily because David Raya is having a great season, he's not doing too bad, with a save percentage of 66.7%. What's actually happening is he's got the lowest amount of saves in a Premier League side this season, and that means that he's facing less shots on target. He's actually faced 69, or Arsenal in general have faced 69 shots on target this season, which is much, much lower than the likes of Liverpool at 111, and it's also lower than Manchester City, 30-odd lower, or 20-odd lower than Manchester City, and it's over 30 lower than Liverpool. And this is down to the way they make up their defence. The defensive unity as an entire unit together just means that little bit more difficult to break down, but at the same time they're also able to play for one another, to play for each other, and it's that defensive solidity that has allowed them to propel themselves forwards and get that fantastic goal difference. Arsenal's defensive unity is seen through a number of different games. We're going to keep on to this recent Brighton fixture, and one thing, or the first thing I want you to notice, is the fact that Arsenal in this current point in time have the entirety of their team in this image. But there's one thing missing, and that's one player, and that's Gabriel. He's currently off the pitch, which means that William Saliba has no defensive partner, but he does now because Declan Rice has just slotted into that role because of the fact that Arsenal are down to 10 men. Now, when we think about that, it's a normal, natural reaction to do, and it's really, really impressive from Declan Rice just be able to fill that gap. We know his height, we know his prowess, we know his ability to play at centre-back at times. He did it, he used to do it for West Ham on a couple of occasions, and it's really impressive, but it's not something that's really going to stand out. What stands out for me in this image is Arsenal's ability to really condense the pitch and condense the space. If you look at here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders, that's their back four, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the midfielders, and the distance between the midfielders and the actual back four is just nearly nothing. And then you see Kai Havertz here, who doesn't have a long way to run between himself and the midfield, or even himself and the defence. The lines that Arsenal managed to condense the pitch to are just incredible, and that makes it so much more difficult for Brighton to be able to play through these different lines. They hold a really good line on the edge of the box, which means that they can't run in beyond. They make sure that the space is condensed, so they have to recycle and go backwards. In this particular occasion, he cuts inside and tries to take a shot, but it's again a percentage shot, meaning that he's more than likely not going to be able to pull it off. It's going to either go wide or the goalkeeper's going to save it. In this particular instance, Raya managed to save it, but it's the condensing of the pitch that Arsenal do such a good job at. Their aggressive nature in defending is what gives them the upper hand more often than not. And without a shadow of a doubt for me, one of the major components to this Arsenal defence, or them being so good, is the addition of Declan Rice. Now, I think a lot of people expected for Rice to be really good for Arsenal, given his pedigree in the Premier League already, how highly sought after he was, but he's made a massive, massive difference, and both going forwards, but also mainly from a defensive point of view. Declan Rice has won 61 tackles, or has 61 tackles in the Premier League this year. That's more than any other Arsenal player, but also he's managed more interceptions than any other Arsenal player, giving him 98 tackles and interceptions this season, and that dwarfs anyone else. And the closest person to him is Alexander Zinchenko with 66. Declan Rice has been an absolute game changer when it comes to stopping opposition attacks, positioning himself in the right point of view, but it's also his strength, determination and positioning which allows him to really be a backbone in the centre of midfield for this Arsenal team, making sure that he's able to win his duels, win his performances and then push the team forwards. It's through this defensive capability, not only as a unit but also individually, Declan Rice has improved Arsenal to no end from a defensive point of view, and you can see it right here in these underlying statistics. But remember early on in the video when I talked about versatility, and it's this versatility that Declan Rice adds into this Arsenal side that makes them that little bit more difficult to break down. So I've got them set up here in their normal 4-3-3 formation. You've got Jorginho as the main centre defensive midfielder, you've got Declan Rice here as one of the attacking mids, and then you've got Martin Odegaard as the other attacking mid. Now, the flexibility of Declan Rice allows him to not necessarily only be in this position, and it allows him to drop a little bit deeper whenever he needs to. And the one main real time that I'm thinking about is when Arsenal played against Manchester City. They needed to be a little bit more defensive, they needed to be a bit more compact, and it's this compactness that is enabled by Declan Rice dropping that little bit deeper. He drops next to Jorginho, and it allows Arsenal just to be that little bit more compact in midfield. It allows them to make sure they're difficult to break down, and then all of a sudden you have a really, really narrow side who is able to go both forwards and backwards together as a unit, but it's Declan Rice that is able to push all of this together, and at the same time that versatility then allows Arsenal to transition when they have the ball and go forwards, and go from almost a 4-4-2 to their 4-3-3, allowing Declan Rice to make those runs in beyond, which we've seen him do for a number of occasions, allow Martin Odegaard to drift into space when he needs to, Martinelli to run down the channels, Saka to run forwards, but then going backwards into that defensive shape when they have to. The flexibility that Declan Rice offers this Arsenal side is second to none, as well as everything else. He is an absolute revelation. But it's not just about defending for defending's sake. Arsenal have the ability to really utilise these defensive opportunities and turn them into more positive, creative attacks. So this is another example, the final example that I'm going to show you in this video of when they played Brighton. So what is the Arsenal setup? We have the back four right here. Currently, this is Tomiyasu instead of Zinchenko. Gabriel is back on the pitch, and you've got your back four. Martinelli and the likes of Leandro Trossard are actually the wingers who are tucking in to make sure that Arsenal are nice and compact. You've got Declan Rice and you've got Jorginho sat next to each other, and then you've got the attacking players in Odegaard and Havertz who make up that back or that front two. So you've got a 4-4-2 essentially when they tuck inside. And I just want you to just notice the compactness that they play with. Look how high they're playing on the edge of the penalty area, and look at that. It's so compact. The distance between defence and attack is nearly non-existent. It makes it so difficult for these Brighton players to be able to pick up the ball, and it makes that a little bit more difficult as well for them to spin in beyond because of the height advantage, because of their reading of the game and their positioning, their speed of play and their aggression to be able to get to the ball. It is fantastic. It's some of the best defending that we can see in the Premier League currently. But what I want to focus on is the proactive nature of some of these Arsenal players, and I'm in particular looking at Leandro Trossard and Kai Havertz. So if we forward this on just a second after this still, we can see that Leandro Trossard decides to go. He sees this as a moment and he wants to pounce on that Brighton defender right here. Really good, really aggressive, nicely done, nicely worked out, and he's looking to really just nick that ball and just make sure that one of his Arsenal teammates is going to be able to pick up that second rotation. It then creates a more positive attack, a counter-attack, and this is from their proactive nature, but also their squeezing and condensing of the pitch. They then move forwards. Kai Havertz manages to pick up that second ball, or that turnover, and then he plays it through to the running Leandro Trossard, and it's through this that Arsenal managed to get a break. It's fantastically worked, and it's through this that they essentially have a free run on goal. This is the last man for Brighton. Leandro Trossard currently runs on and he goes and scores from it. And it's through this defensive work that Arsenal have been able to get a fantastic opportunity, through their defensive cohesion, their compactness in play, but also making sure that they take the opportunities going forwards the other way. They can break a side down. They have the ability to really make themselves defensive. And it's this flexibility and this dynamism that I think makes Arsenal one of the best teams. So they've got the best defensive record, they've got the best offensive record, and they know how to win out a game, grind out a game, and score goals. And it's all of these reasons, all of these underlying facts, as well as their ability on the pitch, that I think makes Arsenal the best side in the Premier League this year. But of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Get involved, get talking. I would love to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on Arsenal and the title race in general. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.